Welcome, Doron. I am just so excited to talk to you. We were already cracking up before we hit record. We have a lot to talk about.
Yes.
And Doron and I actually have a history of working together. So when we were getting our hours, we both worked at some super fun and stressful um, mental health centers. So we have a lot
Right.
in common. And thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Okay. So let's jump in. And I want to share just some common phrases and things I hear from the men that I work with in my private practice. And that is, emotions are made up, feelings are weak. My wife is the one who's
Mm.
emotional. My kids are the ones who are emotional. And I also hear I don't need to work on my feelings because it's not an issue.
Right.
So I wanted to open up with those common things that I hear and just kind of get your take on why you think men go there and say these things.
Well, I think for the most part, again, it's a programming, societal programming, unfortunately, that whenever a man gets in touch with his feelings, he's no longer a man, so to speak. And I feel like a lot of males out there today um, buy into that. At one point in time, I was the same way. I had the same mindset, and we as males like to live in our heads a lot. We're more rational thinkers. We like to analyze and stay disconnected from those feelings because we know once we are connected to those feelings, it reminds us of just how human we are. And if we connect to that, then we're forced to kind of have to face our own shortcomings. And when we are faced with that, then self-doubt comes in, low self-esteem. We start to feel like we don't provide any value to our families, our community. And so for a lot of men, they fear that. So they do whatever they can to stay disconnected from those feelings because that's what feelings do. It reminds us of our humanity. Like we are flawed, we are imperfect.
Yeah. So obviously this podcast is all about the nervous system, the happy nervous system. And
Right.
what I like to do is talk about how incredibly important the body is in mental health.
Right.
And what you were just saying is it's not that men necessarily don't want to just feel their feelings, but opening that door leads to opening up something even more vulnerable. And that's
Mhm.
humanity. Like that's weakness. And that is
Right.
even not providing value to their families.
Right.
So we naturally avoid things that are threatening and can really sacrifice our safety and our worth.
Yes.
So I appreciate
Absolutely.
you sharing that.
A lot of men, we want to uphold that image that society has made us believe, what a man is. And so again, we would do just about any and everything to keep that image intact, to look strong and to look courageous, to be tough, you know, and yeah, and once that door is open, there's that potential of our shortcomings being exposed, so to speak, and that shame being exposed, and a lot of men fear that because they then believe that they're going to be perceived as less than a man, which is far from the truth.
Mhm.
Vulnerability is strength. It's I find it very ironic how a lot of males portray this tough guy image. They go around and like, I'm not afraid of this, I'm not afraid of that. But the moment you ask them to face themselves, they kind of shrink into a corner like a little kid.
Mhm.
And that is the irony in that for me. So for me as a male therapist, and just in doing my own inner work as a male, I aspire to help other guys get out of that corner and help them understand that being vulnerable is actually strength. Because if you're truly not afraid of anything, then you shouldn't be afraid of expressing yourself in any way that helps you live your truth, or be So that's what I aspire to do as a male therapist, not just as a male therapist, but just as a male in general. Just even when I'm not operating as a therapist, like, I want to make sure that my presence and the energy that I exude is one that says it's okay to be imperfect. It's okay to have flaws. It's okay to have some shortcomings, but yet that doesn't define me as a male. Because at the end of the day, I am a human being first and foremost.
Yeah. Oh, so good. So good. I find a lot of irony with men with this idea of turning away from feelings is strength and kind of helps them meet their goals. I think turning towards feelings can get us there faster, and it's way more efficient in the long run. So let's talk about perfection. How and when do men learn and associate perfection with shutting down and not feeling their feelings? Like, when is this learned?
Well, I think, and I would believe that you will agree with this. A lot of what everyone learns in childhood, and I think that's true for men. Um, it varies. Not all men, of course. It varies from household to household in their upbringing. It depends on what messages were conveyed to them as they were growing up. But I think it gets more intense once men, or males, I like to say, hit adolescence, when there's more peer pressure to be a certain way, to appear a certain way. And once they hit that stage, then I feel like a lot of us males now feel pressured to conform in a way that um, displays perfection, and not have any flaws or shortcomings. So I think a lot of that, again, it starts. I believe some start a lot earlier, but I think it gets more intensified once that adolescence stage hits, because that's when we're trying to find that sense of belonging, um, how we relate to other males, and again, society's expectations or society's definition of what it means to be a man. And so a lot of that, I think, is formed. It gets more intense in adolescence, and from that point forward, I believe a lot of males stay attached to that idea, and it's very hard to break when they transition into young adulthood and midlife and so forth and so on.
Mhm.
And it keeps them, unfortunately, for a lot of men, disconnected, um, again, from their families and community and themselves. Like, they really don't get a chance to know who they really are, because they're still wearing this mask that they 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 put on or created based on what society has said is what will make them more respectable as a male.
Mhm. Mhm. Do you think this idea of perfection, or just showing up as strong without flaws, um, is it a pressure that they put on themselves, or is it a pressure from those around them?
Whew, that's I'm a come personal with this. It's a little bit of both for me. I can't speak for all men, but for me, I do put a lot of pressure on myself. I do want to be perfect, if there's such a thing, which I like. Like, logically, I know it's not true, right? We're all flawed. I'm flawed, and but yet that doesn't stop me from striving to be perfect in whatever it is I'm pursuing. But also, I also think it's the image I created about myself too. So now other people kind of expect for me to be perfect in a sense. And when I'm not, or when someone calls me out for like not being perfect in a way, it does makes me upset because it's like, yeah, I know I'm not, I know I had the shortcoming because I know I'm not perfect, but yet and still it still feeds into my need to be perfect.
Huh.
If that makes sense.
It does. I see the interplay between the two, because you
Right,
put it's self pressure. So you've
right,
put the pressure on yourself, which
right,
then you show up in perfect ways to others.
right,
And then there's that expectation. So then when you show up less than perfect, i.e., human, if
right,
you're having a bad day, you might receive that social feedback,
right,
negative feedback, which can then
right.
just perpetuate this cycle. Is that what you're
Yep,
saying?
absolutely. That's it. Right.
Yeah.
And so yes, I do have like I think I've gotten a lot better with it. But again, I'm a former athlete, and so
Oh,
as a
shoot.
so so I had the privilege of playing Division I college football, and there was a lot expected of me even before that, even before I got to that level through high school, middle school, even Pop Warner, like uh, it was perfection. It was drill. Like you run this play this way and you do it this way. And a lot of, I've taken on a lot of that on top of the expectations of my family, academically and just in my behavior. And so a lot of that again starts way back in childhood. And the fact that I have this insatiable drive to be successful, you know, within myself, again, that's the other added pressure of perfection. And so again, like you said, it's the interplay of what I'm expecting of myself and the image I've created that now has created the expectations that other people expect from me. You know, I can tell myself, I know I'm not perfect. I know I'm not perfect, but I'm gonna still strive for it. And then when other people call me out on it, it's like, yeah, I know because I'm not perfect, but so the cycle just continues.
It's rough.
Right.
Would you say this is a problem, especially in relationships?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, because we expect our significant others to be a certain way at times, or they expect for us to be a certain way at times. And when we're not, it's like, well, yeah, I'm human, but yeah, that's perfection is definitely a common thing that I um, not only find myself kind of working against in my personal life, but also with my clients as well. So I think perfection is definitely a thing that doesn't get talked about a lot in mental health, because I feel like that's the cause of a lot of mental distress. Is everyone trying to live up to a certain image or expectation, and when they don't, then that's when the depression hits and the anxiety happens, and other mental health issues arise, substance
Mhm.
abuse, and men
Yeah.
especially, definitely in men, because we are expected to be providers and breadwinners and
Yeah.
the strength of our household.
Yeah. And bringing this back to the body briefly, there are endless studies that show that the rates for men to have certain types of diseases and even cancers are higher than women, depending on what it
Mhm.
is. But I really believe that is due to this idea of perfection and
Yep.
holding
Continue.
everyone and everything in their lives. And we can only take so much somatically in our body. And so
Right.
this is why it's so important to talk about this, because it's affecting physical health. This goes beyond
Right.
mental well-being.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's what a lot of men fail to realize, is that by holding in all of the suppressed emotions and feelings, you're creating disease in your body. Like it's meant, like you just stated, it's manifesting in cancers, it's manifesting in heart disease, even erectile dysfunction. So for all you guys out there holding in your feelings, I encourage you to let them go if you still want to perform.
There you have it.
but yeah, the body, again, the mind and body are not separate. They are not separate. They go hand in hand.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, what we don't express, the body stores. It takes it on until it no longer can take it, and then next thing you know, you're dealing with some type of illness, and you're trying to figure out, like, well, how did this happen? I go to the gym 5 times a week, and I eat fish and salad, and I run 3 miles, and I don't get it. I meditate, and it's like, that's because you're also holding in those unexpressed emotions and feelings that are eating you up from the inside out.
Yeah.
And you just have to let it go. Like, stop holding on to those shameful feelings or those burdensome feelings that that you've been holding on for too long. It's not doing your body any good, and it's preventing you from living the life that you desire to have.
Absolutely. So we'll get into the how, because I want to help male listeners learn how to get out of this cycle of perfection. But first, I think we need to convince them. So let's talk about the why. Why is it important to acknowledge that you have feelings as a man, and then also do some work, whether it's therapy or work on your own? Self-development looks different for everyone, but why is it important for men to manage and work through their feelings?
It's important because, again, as we briefly discussed, it relieves your mind and body of unnecessary distress. I know that seems, for some men, like, I don't get it, but it's
They need a few times of the same thing. So.
Right. I guess it's like progressive muscle relaxation technique. If anyone's ever done that, where you tense your body up for 10, 15 seconds, and then you finally let go, and you feel the tension just leave your body. That's kind of what it's like when you finally sit down and discuss the things that's been bothering you for so long. Once you finally let it out, it's just that intangible feeling of, like, ooh, like a weight has just been lifted. Like it feels that way. This is something you have to experience to truly understand what I'm speaking of right now. Like, once you finally let go of that hate you had for your father, your mother, or that ex-girlfriend who left you for your best friend, like, once you finally let that go and talk to someone about it, instead of trying to just bottle it up and deal with it yourself, that's what it feels like. It feels like you just went through a progressive muscle relaxation technique, and your body is like, finally, I can breathe again. And that's one reason why men should do the work in facing themselves. It's just to simply to unload their backpack of unnecessary things and feelings that they've been carrying for too long. Another reason is to, again, get back in touch with yourself as a human being. Before you knew yourself as a male, you are a human first and foremost. Before you identify with any title that you now go by, you are a human being. And as a human being, we have been given feelings to let us know that we are alive, and to also give us certain messages about ourselves and life in general. For me, whenever I feel a certain way, like if I'm feeling anxious about something, I stop, I take a deep breath, and I say to myself, okay, what is this trying to tell me? What is it? Why am I anxious? Like, I have an idea, if it's a situation, but yet and still, why am I feeling it like this? Like, what am I supposed to learn in this situation right now? And so for me, it's feelings are messages. They are kind of our guides to the next steps in life, and so or our next decisions. And so that's another reason why. And I would say most importantly, in order for you to be the best version of yourself as a male, I think it's very important to do the work to get past those barriers, those behaviors that seem to be self-sabotaging in ways, and and really uncover why that is, so that you can thrive in a way that you aspire to, and also continue to add value to your family, to your community, to the world as you know it. And I mean, that's my reasons why I decided to, embark on this journey, not just as a therapist, but just in my personal life, because I want to be the best version of myself. I'm curious about who I am. Like I shouldn't, like, it's funny because it's like, I have certain behaviors and it's like, I should know this because it's me. Like, but ironically, it's like, I don't in a way. So I'm curious because I aspire to bring light and healing to this world, to myself. And so for me, I just want to be the best version of myself. And if that means being vulnerable and sharing my experiences, then that's just what it is. That's just what life is calling me to do. And so for me, that's my why. And also why I feel other men should also sit with someone and talk about what's really going on underneath the mask.
Yeah.
I just said a lot. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, let's recap. I mean, I'm convinced. So I think the first thing you said was to let go of weight in the backpack. So to breathe, to finally breathe and not be holding the weight of the world on your shoulders.
Right.
And then you got into really being a good person. Like this is important work to do if you want to be a good person and a good partner, and
Right.
just the way you show up in all of your relationships will improve.
Right. Absolutely. Because a lot of times when we don't express what's bothering us, we project it onto other people in ways that now put us in a light that is not so pleasant, I would say. And now people have another perception of us. Because, a lot of times when we don't, as men, when we don't express our sadness or our anxiety or the things that, again, are holding us back from being the best version of ourselves, it often comes out as anger, as we all know, aggressiveness. We withdraw, we isolate, and unfortunately for some guys, they turn to substance abuse in order to numb those feelings. But what they fail to realize is that those feelings only get stronger and intensify when you don't address them appropriately. And what I mean appropriately is just simply talking about it. It's as simple as that. Right. It's simple. Like, I don't see, I've heard it too. Like, I don't see how talking about my feelings is going to help me. Well, we have to understand why you feel the way you feel. And that's the key, is to get to the root causes of why you're feeling the way you do. That's why it's important to talk about it.
Yeah.
Because there was a feeling that led you to engage in a certain behavior. It was a feeling that created these thought patterns that you're having. Mm-hmm. So that's why it's important to talk about what you were feeling right before you did X, Y, and Z. That's why it's important to talk about your feelings. And this is how talking about your feelings can help you get to the next level of your life.
Yeah. Super important. You mentioned the word behavior, and for the men that I have worked with who show up and like, I don't got feelings, like does not exist for me. I'm like, okay, great. Let's talk about your behaviors. And I remember one client was just struggling with eating. Like, this was low key though. It wasn't an obvious struggle to others, but
right.
He would go through these patterns of being super fit and then once it was done, like he would overeat and eat things, he knew he shouldn't. And so with behaviors, they can be so helpful to just uncover emotions that you might not be able to recognize on your own.
Right.
So I'd ask
Right.
him, all right, take me to the behavior. What were you feeling right before the donuts? It's like, gotcha. So that's really important. And
Right.
feelings are felt in the body. And that's why
Yep.
the body matters. And
The body matters. Yeah.
yeah,
The body lets us know just about everything before we make that decision. We feel it in our bodies, well, at least for me, I feel it before I make a conscious decision on what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
Right. It's usually for me in my stomach or my heart. Like my heart either start beating fast or it's like my body is giving me the signal.
Yeah.
So that's why it's very important to stay connected to the body as well.
Very. All right. We conquered the why. Hopefully we've convinced you. Let's get into the how. So first, I want to start with maybe giving the female some advice or some ideas on how to approach mental health with their partners or with the men in their lives. I've heard a lot of time that their attempts have not worked well. They've fallen flat. So do you have any ideas for the women listening how to approach mental health and feelings with the men in their lives?
Well, I'm about to go in therapist mode right now and ask the question. Sorry to answer a question with a question, but how are they approaching? Like, what have you heard? Like, what have been some of the approaches?
Okay, so so I'd say most approaches are a bit aggressive and happen during conflict. So
Mhm.
it's when women don't feel heard, they don't feel seen. The man goes into problem solving mode
Yep.
when
Yep.
she really wants to feel heard in her feelings. So then
Yep.
her approach is like, you are a robot. You aren't hearing me. You don't have feelings. You need to go work on your own shit. That's usually kind of the
Right.
conversation.
Yeah, that's not. Yeah, for a lot of males, that's gonna be like, it's over their head. First and foremost, I would say you have to make sure that you're not in that high emotional state. Even if that's what you want to say in the moment, because he's not going to receive it, especially if there's a conflict. A lot of times in conflict, unfortunately, people are only listening to reply, not to understand. Like they're already cocked and loaded, ready to shoot off their next responses to what you just said. So when you're in that heated moment, everything is going to misfire. So you kind of have to. You can still express yourself in that moment, but if you really want him to dive deeper into himself, then it's best to kind of wait till things have kind of simmered down and then approach him in a way that's more motherly, nurturing, so to speak. Even though I'm not suggesting you become his mother, but a lot of men kind of respond to that in a way, and so it's kind of taking that nurturing approach and say, hey, it seems to me you're not as emotionally connected as I would like for you to be, especially for us to deepen our intimacy. And I'm not exactly sure, how you feel at times or much of what is really going on with you. I don't know. Have you ever? This is just a thought. Have you ever, you know, considered talking with someone? I feel like it would be helpful. I feel like it's hard for you to share things with me for whatever reason, and hopefully you can let me know that so I can make this a safe space for us to talk about things that may be troubling you, and we can kind of go from there. But when we have these disagreements, I just feel that we are just not connected. We're disconnected, and it hurts, and I would like to be more connected to you. And you just kind of go from there.
Go from there and good luck.
Good luck. Right. But you definitely have to create a safe space for him to
Yeah.
feel like he can be. And when I say safe space, I mean having a non-judging approach. Eliminate the word should and shouldn't from your vocabulary. When a man hears you should do this, you should do that, you shouldn't, at least for me, it kind of feels like I'm being talked to as a child.
Yeah.
And so when that happens, it definitely puts up more defense mechanisms. So you have to create a safe space that is non-judging, that's inviting, that's saying, hey, I know this may be difficult for you to talk about or express, but I'm here for you. I just want to listen to you. And I still see you as, this handsome, strong guy. Doesn't define you if you talk about it. I just want to be more connected to you.
Mm-hmm.
And so you really have to, I think for a lot of males, it's having a space that is non-judging. Mm-hmm. And that's key. You have to be very mindful of the words you speak.
For sure.
Yeah.
And you said something very important, and that is conversations don't go anywhere if both partners or just one are in a stress response. So in a place of activation, heart's beating fast, you're angry, your body's ready to go and fight, because like you said, it will only be reactive. It will not be, you won't be engaged in listening and breathing and really making progress. And something else you said that's important is being collaborative. So I heard you say it's important to talk about the why in the pitch. It's like, I want to deepen our intimacy. I want to, this is where I want to go with you. And so it does matter. And feeling your feelings and doing the work, like it can be a strategy to get us there. And so I think strategies, solutions, like, correct me if I'm wrong, but these resonate, these kind of hit home in the male brain. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. We're as a male, we're all about strategy. We're strategic. We're logical, we're analytical, we're trying to come up with ways to, progress ourselves, and we often, unfortunately, a lot of males feel like feelings don't help us with that, but that's far from the truth. Feelings can help us progress just as well as our analytical brains can. Mm-hmm. Because at the same time, when you're having a very difficult time trying to come up with a way to advance yourself, when you're stuck trying to think of ways, you have to come into that feeling sense. Like, what are you feeling? What is your gut telling you? What is that intuition? Yeah. Right. And that's why feelings are important, because feelings can take us just as far as our brains can, like what we're thinking. Yeah. And so it's very important to pay attention to those feelings. Again, our bodies usually tell us before the brain does.
Yes.
Whether or not a decision is a good decision. So, we feel it, but sometimes that ego kicks in and it's like, no, do this instead or do that instead. And we ignore that feelings, and that's when we become cut off. And before you know it, we are dealing with things that could have been avoided in some ways.
Mm-hmm. All right. So before we wrap up, I want to hit one last topic with you. We're almost there. How can we do a better job raising boys to be more connected to their feelings and really help them redefine what strength is? Any ideas?
Definitely eliminating the phrase "boys don't cry." We have to eliminate that. Because when that happens, well, when a boy is told that, that's the beginning of emotional suppression. that's when he will continue to go through life feeling, oh, I have this feeling, but I've been told that it's not okay to have it. So therefore, I'm just going to just hold it all inside. And when something triggers it, instead of crying, I'm just going to explode in a different way. And so we have to eliminate that and just really, when a boy is being sad in a way, comfort him and say, it's okay, it's okay to cry. You're human. You're human, right? That I think that's we have to emphasize that you're human. It's okay. It's okay to cry, to let it go. That's strength. Like when a boy, I think once we are able to help them understand like that's strength, then we can begin developing young males more into the men that can be more emotional, expressive, and intimate with their partners.
Yeah.
Also, I feel that just not having set expectations and set images of what it means or what a boy should look like or what a man should look like. I think that should kind of be up to the male as they develop into their manhood. Like what makes me feel like a man? What makes me feel strong and courageous? And allow them to come into that under their own way of being, instead of having this box of things and says, all right, go into that box and pick out your man things. Allow them to create their own box and say, this is what I need and want in order to feel like a man. So it allowing that creative expression, I think that's key. Into helping boys make that transition into what it means to be a man, and not holding them up to society's expectations or your expectations.
Yeah. Amazing tip. So I loved what you said about you're human. Like, my goodness, we are so quick to, I think, speak to these dangerous gender norms and expectations and values without first just helping children recognize that they are a human in a human body that will respond. It will respond to stress. It will respond to things that are uncomfortable. So I love that, taking away the labels of even being a boy and just embracing all emotions, and then also raising boys to allow for space for them to define their own definition of what masculinity is. And that's hard to do. I have to say, I'm sure as a parent, if you don't hold space for yourself. So there's another reason right there as to why this is so important for males to do the work before or during when they're raising sons.
Yeah, such as myself. I have a 13-year-old son, and he actually, when he was born, as I reflect back on this, he was kind of like the catalyst to me realizing my toxic masculine ways based on how I was brought up. I'm originally from South Carolina, deep South. So, there's men conduct themselves in a certain manner. And so it was when he was born, I initially found myself trying to bring those same generational, patterns into his life, and his response was different. And that's when I had to really step back and say, wait, he's not me. He's different. And so I am very grateful that he came into my life, because he helped me begin to peel back the layers of myself on what it means to be a man. And I don't have any expectations of him, so to speak, as a man, as far as what he wants to do with his life, as long as it's not intentionally causing harm to himself or anyone else in the process. I support him.
Yeah.
I'm there for him. I don't tell him to stop crying or man up, whenever he's feeling sad, but I just let him know I'm here for him. It's okay. Even though I can now tell that he's kind of going into that idea of how boys supposed to be. Now he's 13. He's a teenager. And so I can tell now that he's kind of going in that way, but it's his journey,
Yeah.
and all I can do is continue to do the work on myself. So when it gets to a certain point in his life, I can again begin to help him understand who he is and help him define what it means to be a man for himself, not for me or his mother or society. Mm-hmm. And so, like you pointed out, yes, parents, we have to do the work as well. Especially fathers. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, this was amazing. Thank you so much for all of your input. Where can listeners find you? I know you are seeing clients, right?
Yes, I am.
Awesome. Yes. Okay. Share where people can find you.
Well, if you are in the Los Angeles area, more so Sherman Oaks, Encino, Studio City area, you can find me for, sessions. If not, if Zoom is convenient, you can always find me on Zoom. Also, you can find me on social media, more so just Instagram, at Doron Willis, Doron Willis. And yeah, that's pretty much where you can find me as I continue to post my toxic commandment posts and try to redefine man up. I didn't speak on that, but that's also another toxic term that boys often hear growing up is man up.
Yeah.
And essentially what that means is be tough, don't cry, don't show any feminine qualities. However, when I talk about man up, I'm talking about manning up in the sense of facing yourself, addressing your feelings, not being afraid of yourself, first and foremost. Man up in that way, not being afraid of yourself. So that is a project that I've been working on that I really want to help change the narrative on when it comes to that phrase, man up.
So important. You are doing the work. It's amazing.
Oh yeah, so I love the work. I love the work. I love it. I love it. It's amazing how far I've come personally as a male.
Yeah.
Like my beliefs and thoughts, and I must say I'm proud of myself. In a million years, growing up, if you told me I was going to be a therapist, I would have laughed in your face. Like I never ever saw this, imagine this, but I feel at home. And again, I owe a lot of that to you. I thank you for encouraging me to continue the journey when I was at a crossroads of whether or not to continue. And you said, hey, I really feel like you should complete your hours and get licensed. And I'm glad you told me that.
Yay. I am too. Look at how many people even this episode will reach. It's really cool. Yes. Well, thank you so much. And I'll be sure to put your social media in the show notes so people can find you.
Okay.
But thanks so much, Doron.